Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will discuss athletes and marijuana, but more importantly, a survey of medical marijuana and how it could work to prevent injuries and long-term conditions for our NFL athletes. Thank you. Let's take a little bit of time to understand the premise behind why medical marijuana could be such a help to the player. Jimmy Seau was a historically gifted linebacker for the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins as well. He was assigned his home after killing himself after retiring from football. Now, just 3 years earlier, Dave Thorson also committed suicide, and he suffered from the brain condition known as CTE. Now, this brain condition, which is caused by concussions, actually shows that it gives players a hard time sleeping. It helps them suffer from depression as well. And it was a reason why multiple players actually committed suicide or led them to opiate or alcoholic addiction. Now, the death of these former players, as well as the NFL covering up the real issue behind concussions, led many people to start to look into what was going on with the NFL from a safety measure and looking at player safety. Now, the death of these players actually led to a lawsuit from former players in which the NFL was made to pay $765 million, with more to be counted along the way. Now, since then, the NFL has done an incredible job of helping out with concussions. They've had concussion protocol, new issues in player safety. For instance, if a player is on the field and they show signs of a concussion, they have to come out for a play. They have to be checked and possibly taken out the game. Now, while the NFL has tried to, change these things from a public relations standpoint, show people that they are intrigued by what's going on with their players, they have kind of dropped the ball as far as retired players' health and how to contribute to the overall player safety during the week after a player plays a game. When a player is going through an injury during the season, what are they doing to take the correct steps? Eugene Monroe was a left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. He actually retired from football in 2010 because he feared for his safety in future life. Now, Eugene Monroe has been a huge advocate for medical marijuana because he believes that it's a better way for players to, work on their pain management during the week. For instance, when a player gets an injury, they usually get painkiller pills and cortisone shots. Now, according to Nate Jackson, former player of the Denver Broncos, nearly 17,000 Americans overdosed and died from prescription painkillers in 2011. Now, those are the same pills that were handed in full bottles after an injury, same pills that are ravaging our cities, the same ones that are creating populations of apathetic adults, pill popping their way through the day and dead behind their eyes, the same ones that are leading high schoolers to heroin because these pills no longer get them high and are too expensive. Yeah, those. Now, that was a quote from Nate Jackson. You'll also notice that 71% of NFL players who reported taking opioids admitted to misusing them. What happens is when these players become hurt and they're injured and the physical trainer, the athletic trainer gives them these pills, these are highly addictive drugs if you continue to use them as pain management. Now imagine this. There's 17 weeks in the NFL season plus 4 weeks in the Super Bowl. If a player is going through a minor back injury such as DeMarcus Ware from the Denver Broncos last year, it's safe to say that they would have been taking these painkillers and cortisone shots throughout the entire season. Medical marijuana offers a different solution to this, and we'll discuss exactly how that will work and some of the things that it can do. But more importantly, what we need to understand is why we haven't used medical marijuana for our athletes yet. And the NFL defines the substances that it bans in its anti-drug use stances as a substance in question that acts as a performance enhancer, giving users an unfair advantage on the field. It unduly threatens athlete health and well-being via dangerous side effects or addiction. And finally, use and abuse unduly threatens an organization's bottom line via negative fan perception. Now, it is very possible that that negative fan perception is one of the key reasons why medical marijuana hasn't been used. We have to understand that in this country, there's a stigma regarding marijuana because of the recreational uses that it has. However, since 1996, half of the United States has actually legalized medical marijuana. Now, we know that there are benefits from medical marijuana, and we will get into that as we go on, but we have to understand that medical marijuana, due to the Controlled Substance Act, is a Schedule 1 drug, which characterizes as a drug that has no medical purpose. One of the things that we will try to understand is why is that the case if so many states have legalized medical marijuana, and does that negative perception actually hurt the NFL's chances of using this drug to help their players? The key to our research will be to answer three major questions that will help us better use the medical marijuana to help the NFL players and better understand if we should actually fund it. The first one is, does medical marijuana present enough logical cases to fund research for NFL players? The second being, does the stigma behind recreational marijuana hurt athletes' chances of this alternative medicine as a use for pain management? And finally, would the use of medical marijuana by NFL athletes and role models be harmful to the league, the fans who watch it, and their children who also watch the game?
There's a lot of past literature regarding the use of medical marijuana in medical research and for patients in general. The first one that we'll discuss is Thomas Strauss, Cannabinoids in Medical Research. Now in this, Strauss explains that marijuana as a medical benefit has been used as a coping strategy for those illnesses that won't necessarily be cured. And he wonders if the use of marijuana could be used in other illnesses that aren't currently used, but because of the lack of research, he wonders what's at stake by not using it at all. He mentions that 85% of citizens decided that they would be in favor of an ill patient using marijuana. Now, the approved conditions for medical marijuana that Strauss brings up will be important in comparing the symptoms that may exist in those conditions among people that have CTE, such as insomnia, anxiety, lack of appetite, and depression. Another important issue that he addresses with regard to public safety is how does medical marijuana use affect behavior? So there's room to understand which forms of marijuana could produce the safest and healthiest option, whether it be smoke, pill, or vapor form. And Strauss uses his subject to really describe how this could work for certain patients. Now the next person in D.A. Elliott, Support Cure Cancer. Now this one discusses medical marijuana use in head and neck cell patients that have had head and neck cancer. So those have been treated with radiotherapy. Now the purpose of that study was to better understand patients with history of head and neck cancer treated with radiotherapy and those that are using medical marijuana. So what they did was actually passed out a questionnaire to 15 patients, and these patients had long-term side effects from their head and neck cancer treatment. Now what they noticed was that medical marijuana use helped with long-term effects of radiotherapy. Now, in these head and neck injuries, the actual cancer was not necessarily in their bodies, but they suffered from different things. So medical marijuana provided benefit in altered sense, weight maintenance, depression, pain management, appetite, muscle spasms, and sticky saliva. Now, what we could use by this is that CTE is not similar to brain cancer, but we have to realize that the conditions that exist after one has CTE or after one goes through that radiotherapy, medical marijuana helps to lower those conditions. And when we talk about the use of marijuana and how it could affect fans, Laura Schmidt actually provides a really intriguing article in Young People's Permissive Views About Marijuana. Now, what that article attempts to do is determine whether state medical marijuana laws send the wrong message, that is, have a local influence on views of young people about the risk of marijuana. So what she did was actually perform a multi-level cross-sectional analysis using the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Now, what she actually found was that living in medical marijuana states was associated with more permissive views regarding marijuana. However, those associations became non-significant after they adjusted for state-level differences. So, passing medical marijuana laws doesn't seem to directly affect the views of young people in medical marijuana states. However, there is a national trend toward young people being more permissive about medical marijuana. Now, this is important because NFL players are viewed as role models. So we want to make sure that when these players are using medical marijuana, it's not directly affecting the young people who are watching them. But what this article shows me, and what Laura Smith actually pronounced to, was that medical marijuana can be looked at as a prescription drug the same way that someone might use any of the pain medicines. You know, by a parent using active care and an NFL player using good care and not leaving their drugs around or leaving their medical marijuana around, this could actually be influenced right into regular medical benefits. Now, the next article that I actually looked at was by Knopp, and he talks about from Alcoholism and Drug and Abuse Weekly, he talks about the fact that marijuana is still a Schedule I drug, but encourages more medical use research according to the DEA. Now, overall, the DEA decided to use marijuana as a Schedule I drug. So this means that marijuana is still illegal and that there's no medical benefit for it. However, 25 states have actually allowed medical marijuana to be distributed without any backlash from the federal government. So what this shows me is that while many states have shown, many populations in different states have shown the ability to pass medical marijuana laws because they believe that it works, it's not happening on a large scale. So one, that shows us that we need to do more research, but also shows us that there are other players that are affecting why medical marijuana isn't legal all across the board, and that could be hurting our NFL players. One, big tobacco is brought up. Big tobacco is one of the lobbyists, and alcohol is one of the lobbyists who are effectively trying not to allow medical marijuana because they believe it will lead to more recreational marijuana use, and you know, in the future that would be legalized as well. So by stopping that, they actually begin to save money, and there's a lot of lobbyist platforms that aim to make sure that medical marijuana remains a Schedule I drug, which in turn will hurt our football players because the stigma behind marijuana is really the issue when it comes to the legalization, and especially the federal legalization of medical marijuana could always help the NFL because they're a federal league as well. The next article that we looked at was Nate Jackson, who's a former NFL player. We went over his quote a little bit earlier. He talks about the NFL's absurd marijuana policy. Now, Nate Jackson draws comparisons to 3 former players who have stood up for allowing cannabinoids to help with NFL injuries compared to cortisone shots and pain relievers. Now, his opinion will be necessary as we get an understanding of players, how much marijuana they're using now, how they feel it is affecting them, and how they feel it would help compared to using opioids. The final one by Mr. Woodward is cannabis used for chronic non-cancer pain. So we talked about how brain injuries would actually, and neck injuries from cancer patients actually did, show some improvement with marijuana. In this one, we actually look at HIV. Now, obviously, HIV is a long-term infection that won't necessarily go away, but there's an increasing need to manage the symptoms and side effects during long-term drug therapy. So cannabis has actually been reported as being beneficial for a number of common symptoms in HIV infections, for example, poor appetite and neuropathy. Now, the study here aimed to investigate symptom management with cannabis. So they actually did another questionnaire. Patients actually reported improved appetite, less muscle pain, less nausea, less anxiety, less nerve pain, less depression, and only 40% actually associated memory deterioration. So the source represents another level of view on how certain conditions can be eased with the use of medical marijuana. What's different from this in the brain cancer research is that this is a longer term study, which not only allows us to see how cannabis will improve those, but what negative effects it might have on them after a long period of time. So with such a controversial issue like medical marijuana, it's important that we see all the angles regarding its benefits before we can really weigh the pros and cons and ultimately recommend it for our NFL players. As we spoke about, the real goal of this research is to get the NFL to fund more research on medical marijuana by showing cases where it could work and that people are really open to using it. So the method that we will use to get a better understanding regarding the research will be a qualitative design. However, it's going to be a two-part survey geared towards the NFL, its players, and its fans. So we want to make sure that we find how the effects of marijuana can help players and if they believe it can, but also how it will be taken by the fans. And the NFL is a large-scale business, and anything that's going to hurt business, anything that's going to bring down the overall perception of the league is something that we want to make sure we discuss, or else the NFL won't be open to, these type of things. In a focus group with sports management students at the University of Delphi, many students found from the focus group that they didn't know as much about medical marijuana as they thought they did. They didn't know as much about its benefits, and they didn't actually realize how many states had already legalized medical marijuana, which shows me that there's a couple things that are at play here. One, there's a lack of information for the average citizen to understand if medical marijuana has benefits, and who's operating to, continue the stigma of medical marijuana, and are we giving it a shot? Now, in that case, one of the surveys that we're going to do is a phone survey with randomly selected fans from cities with football teams across the United States. Now, it's important that we draw from states in which medical marijuana is legal and illegal. We want to find out if fans think players should use medical marijuana to treat injuries and conditions. Now, this survey will only give us a baseline level to simply understand if fans think that they should be able to do it. And then we could always move further and really look to dive into what fans know about it if they need more education on it. Now, the other survey that we would use would be handed out to a random sample of NFL players that are attempt to get an accurate review, and it's going to be a little bit more in-depth than the fan survey. So with the NFL players, we want to know if they agree with current pain management in the NFL, if they do or not, agree with medical marijuana, how they think that it will affect fan behavior, and if they're currently using marijuana for pain. See, a lot of times NFL players are using marijuana, as Nate Jackson discussed in his paper, but what happens is they're skating around the rules. And in turn, players like Josh Gordon, Le'Veon Bell, and Randy Moss, as well as Ricky Williams, has been suspended for multiple games and lost millions of dollars by sitting out games for using marijuana. Now, if these players are using marijuana for pain because they don't want to get addicted to opiates, it's important that we find that out. Just find out what players are thinking. Now, every 4 to 6 years, the players and owners come together and renegotiate the collective bargaining agreement. This is important because players will come to the table with what they think needs to happen in the league. Owners will do the same thing. And in turn, if players come to the table and say that they really feel that the pain management in the league is not healthy for them, they feel like medical marijuana research should be explored, these are the type of things that if we know going into a collective bargaining agreement, we're more likely to get the NFL to understand the cause and put more money and funding towards it. Now, the ultimate goal of our study is not only to get the NFL to research more uses of medical marijuana, but also to, in turn, in the future, get them to use medical marijuana as a way to help players if this research turns to coincide with what's going on today. The important thing behind the way that we did the research is that by doing those surveys and questionnaires, we want to make sure that over time we see the same results. Now, after seeing those results, if we can come to the conclusion in the conceptual framework that players believe that they could use medical marijuana better than opiates and becoming addicted to them, and that fans understand that players should be able to use this because we want to make sure our players are healthy, and long term we want to make sure the conditions that they may have from the risk of playing football are lessened so that we don't have Hall of Famers committing suicide. We want to constantly run tests to make sure that we can really assess the reliability of certain tests. To conclude, I would like to thank everyone for coming out and listening to my ideas on athletes and marijuana and my research proposal. Now, understand that marijuana has always been something that's divided people. Some people see the recreational use and the stigma behind it and decide that it wouldn't be a good thing. But here's an opportunity for our NFL players who are suffering from CTE, who are suing the NFL because they didn't know the risk. Here's an opportunity to make sure that they can live healthy lives after we've already enjoyed the performance they put on the field. I ask that you research my research proposal, go through exactly some of the points that I pointed out. I'm open to any suggestions, and I think that once we get this research out, the NFL will be definitely looking to put money towards medical marijuana research. Thank you and have a good day.